Every metalhead knows the big names. But what about the ones history forgot? The bands that shaped the genre, then slipped through the cracks. From the fuzzed-out pioneers of the 60s, to the heavy-hitting outlaws of the 70s, to the underground warriors of the 80s who never got their shot. Let's dive into 30 obscure metal bands and see how deep your metal knowledge really goes. We'll start in the 1960s, where heavy blues, acid rock, and proto-metal first collided to shape the sound that was still years away from being called metal. Number 1, Jerusalem.
Tell me how you feel. Tell me love is real. Tell me what to do.
This heavy British five-piece only released one album in 1972, but its roots trace back to the late 60s, and the sound was far ahead of its time. With gritty guitars, raw vocals, and slow-burning riffs, they captured a heaviness that bordered on early doom, making them one of the earliest bands to carry the metal torch. Their self-titled LP, produced by Deep Purple's Ian Gillan, was full of thunderous rhythm sections and jagged, almost unhinged guitar work. Songs like Frustration and Primitive Man dripped with the kind of thick, distorted energy that would later become a staple in stoner and sludge metal scenes. Despite the Gillan endorsement, the band never took off commercially and quickly disbanded. But in underground circles, Jerusalem remains a cult gem, raw, unfiltered, and unmistakably heavy. Number 2, Granicus. Emerging from Cleveland in the tail end of the 60s, Granicus had all the elements of a band on the verge: powerful vocals, shredding guitar work, and a stage presence that could fill arenas. Their self-titled 1973 debut came out of the gate swinging, but the material had already been simmering since the final years of the 60s. Frontman Woody Leffel's high-register wail and the band's tight, driving riffs gave songs like You're in America and Bad Talk a raw, electrified edge. The band blurred the lines between Zeppelin-esque hard rock and the more aggressive pulse that metal would soon adopt. Despite their talent, they were dropped from their label after just one album. The band vanished almost overnight, but their lone LP remains a cult favorite for collectors and a buried treasure for anyone tracing the roots of American heavy metal. Number 3, Bang. Long before doom metal had a name, this Philadelphia trio was already playing it. Bang formed in 1969 and, by the early 70s, had crafted a sound built on ominous riffs, pounding rhythms, and lyrics steeped in death and fate, decades ahead of the genre they helped foreshadow. Their 1971 debut Bang is often compared to early Black Sabbath, with standout tracks like Lions, Christians, and The Queen, showcasing slow, heavy grooves and thick, minor key melodies. The guitar tone was dense, the vocals commanding, and the mood darker than almost anything else on the US rock scene at the time. A label misfire delayed their album's release, and by the time it hit shelves, their momentum was already fading. But the record found a second life among doom and stoner metal fans, many of whom consider Bang one of the unsung originators of American heavy. Number 4, The Gun. This British power trio made a brief but explosive impact in 1968 with a single track that echoed far beyond its era. Race with the Devil opened with a machine gun riff and pounding drums that would later influence everyone from Judas Priest to Girl School, a heavy metal blueprint before the genre had a name. Their self-titled album balanced heavy psych with orchestrated touches, but it was the raw energy and guitar-forward aggression that set them apart. Tracks like Yellow Cabman and Rat Race leaned into distorted tones and a gritty vocal delivery that hinted at something harder on the horizon. Despite their influence, the band faded quickly after a second album. Guitarist Paul Gervitz would resurface in later projects, but the Guns' short-lived catalog remains a vital link between British psych and the first wave of metallic hard rock. Number 5. The Head Shop. Hailing from Queens, New York, this outfit took the wild spirit of psychedelia and drenched it in distortion, menace, and proto-metal fuzz. Their 1969 self-titled album was marketed with the tagline, "Do You Want Head?" And what followed was a dark, swirling trip that pushed the boundaries of heavy music at the time. From the opening roar of Head Shop to the eerie cover of Yesterday, the album layered thick fuzz guitar, haunting organ, and an almost claustrophobic intensity. It wasn't built for airplay. It was built to unsettle, sounding more like a haunted acid trip than a typical rock record. They disappeared after just one LP, but their music lived on in underground circles. For collectors and metal historians, the Head Shop is a strange but essential step in the evolution from psychedelic excess to full-blown sonic weight. Let's pause for a second. That's 5 obscure metal pioneers from the 1960s, from eerie fuzz to thunderous proto-doom. How many of these have you actually heard of? Which one deserves a serious comeback? Or do you have a deep-cut favorite from the 60s we should have included? Drop your picks in the comments, and let's see who really knows their early metal roots. Number 6. Andromeda. Led by future Atomic Rooster guitarist John Ducan, Andromeda delivered one of the most ambitious and heavy underground albums of the late 60s. Their 1969 self-titled debut was a whirlwind of proto-metal riffage, extended solos, and early prog flourishes, equal parts technical and aggressive. Tracks like Too Old and Return to Sanity featured pounding drums, thick bass lines, and guitar work that leaned more toward metal than most British psych of the era. It was loud, layered, and unapologetically complex, with moments of true heaviness woven through its swirling structures. Despite critical respect and growing cult interest, the band dissolved shortly after their first album. Still, Andromeda's one-and-done release remains a favorite among collectors and a buried gem in the roots of prog metal crossover history. Number 7. Edgar Broughton Band. They looked like they came from the underground, and they absolutely sounded like it. The Edgar Broughton Band emerged in the late 60s with a mix of psychedelic sludge, bluesy freakouts, and political fury that put them miles apart from the polished rock of the day. Their debut, Wassa Wassa, in 1969 was raw and snarling, filled with distorted guitars, howling vocals, and a defiant spirit. Tracks like Death of an Electric Citizen and Love in the Rain pulsed with chaotic energy, often feeling more like early punk doom than anything tied to flower power. They never cracked the mainstream, and that was probably the point. The band built a loyal cult following instead, drawn to the heaviness, the message, and the madness. For proto-metal diggers, they're an essential detour into the wild side of heaviness. Number 8. Power of Zeus. Out of Detroit's gritty rock underground came a band that brought early signs of doom and heaviness with a spiritual, almost apocalyptic tone. Power of Zeus released their only album, The Gospel, according to Zeus, in 1970. But their roots were pure 60s hard rock, shaped by the Motor City's raw energy. Songs like It Couldn't Be Me and No Time combined dark, introspective lyrics with slow-burning grooves and thick, distorted guitars. There was no flash or polish, just pounding rhythms and a murky, almost suffocating atmosphere that hinted at the rise of stoner and doom metal to come. Their record label, Rare Earth, a Motown imprint, didn't know what to do with them, and they disappeared shortly after. But that lone LP has since become a cult favorite, a strange and heavy footnote in the story of proto-metal's evolution. Number 9. The Frost. Hailing from Detroit's booming rock scene, The Frost delivered a gritty, no-nonsense sound that teetered on the edge of proto-metal. Fronted by guitarist Dick Wagner, who'd later play with Alice Cooper and Lou Reed, the band blended high-octane psych rock with aggressive guitar riffs and blue-collar intensity. Their albums, Frost Music and Rock and Roll Music, released in 1969 and 1970, were packed with punchy, riff-driven anthems like Black as Night and Rock and Roll Music. Wagner's playing was ferocious but melodic, bringing a sharper edge to the band's garage roots and separating them from the sea of psych imitators. Despite strong regional success, they never broke nationally. Still, The Frost remains a crucial name in the Detroit hard rock lineage, and an early taste of the heaviness that would soon define metal's rise. Number 10. Zior. Occult imagery, fuzzy riffs, and a dirty underground vibe, Zior embodied the darker corners of late 60s British rock. Formed in Essex, they leaned heavily into witchcraft themes and bluesy, organ-laced heaviness that would later influence early doom and stoner metal aesthetics. Their self-titled 1971 debut was reportedly recorded in 1969 to 1970, and it oozed vintage proto-metal filth. Tracks like Entrance of the Devil and Before My Eyes Go Blind paired psychedelic weirdness with pounding drums and gritty, overdriven guitar tones that felt heavier than most of their peers. Despite their theatrical flair, the band never gained traction and faded quickly. But for those tracing the lineage of metal's darker edge, Zior is a name that still flickers in the shadows. That wraps the 60s, 10 bands that helped metal take its first steps. Some were heavy, some were strange, but all of them pushed rock towards something darker and louder. Which one surprised you the most? Got another proto-metal favorite we didn't include? Let us know in the comments. And stick around, because the 70s are where things really start to get loud. Number 11. Sir Lord Baltimore. Before Black Sabbath defined the genre, this Brooklyn trio had already unleashed something loud, fast, and unhinged. Kingdom Come, their 1970 debut, hit like a runaway freight train, packed with distorted riffs, manic drumming, and vocals that sounded halfway between a battle cry and a breakdown. Tracks like Master Heartache and Hellhound came barreling out of the speakers with proto-thrash energy and a guitar tone that could peel paint. It was raw and over the top, with almost no trace of the bluesy restraint still present in most early hard rock. The album's liner notes were among the first to ever use the phrase heavy metal, and fans still argue that this band coined the term. Commercial success never came, but Kingdom Come is now cemented as a cornerstone in metal's unruly birth. Number 12, Dust. Long before the members found fame elsewhere, this New York power trio was laying down riffs that cut cleaner and deeper than most bands in 1971. Dust's debut was a fusion of heavy blues, proto-metal riffage, and breakneck drumming, courtesy of a young Mark Bell, who'd later join the Ramones as Marky Ramone. Their self-titled album and its 1972 follow-up Heart Attack were loaded with tracks like From a Dry Camel and Suicide, combining dark lyrical themes with dense, aggressive musicianship. Guitarist Richie Wise had a tone that snarled, while Kenny Aronson's bass kept things locked and thundering. Despite their heavy sound and strong material, the band disbanded after just 2 albums. But decades later, Dust is recognized as one of the earliest US bands to flirt openly with the sound and spirit of full-blown heavy metal. Number 13, Night Sun. Germany's Night Sun dropped just 1 album, Mornin' in 1972. But what they left behind was nothing short of feral. Combining Hammond organ with down-tuned guitars, shouted vocals, and galloping rhythms, they delivered a sound that was equal parts early prog and unmistakably proto-metal. Tracks like Plastic Shotgun and Got a Bone of My Own sounded like Deep Purple on speed, with unpredictable shifts and a level of aggression few bands dared to touch at the time. The production was gritty, the riffs were sharp, and the energy was relentless, all wrapped in a psychedelic haze. They disappeared almost as quickly as they arrived, but that one record became a holy grail for collectors and an influence on Germany's later heavy scenes. For many, Mornin' is one of the earliest records that truly feels like metal. Number 14, Lucifer's Friend. With a name like that, you'd expect something heavy, and this band absolutely delivered. Formed in Hamburg and fronted by British vocalist John Lawton, later of Uriah Heep, Lucifer's Friend debuted in 1970 with a self-titled album that bridged the gap between early hard rock, progressive metal, and doom. Tracks like Ride the Sky featured menacing brass over thundering guitar riffs and Lawton's powerhouse vocals, a combination that was theatrical, aggressive, and far ahead of its time. The band mixed organ-heavy psych with dark lyrical themes and a distinctly European heaviness that felt different from their UK and US counterparts. Despite releasing a string of albums through the 70s, they never broke internationally. But their debut remains a cult classic, one of the earliest examples of a band confidently walking into metal territory while still defining what that even meant. Number 15, Necromandus. Emerging from northern England in the early 70s, Necromandus fused prog complexity with dark, Sabbath-style riffing long before that combination became common. Formed in Cumbria, they were signed by Tony Iommi himself, who also produced their shelved 1973 debut, Orexis of Death. The album combined melancholic melodies with crushing riffs and unexpected time shifts. Tracks like Homicidal Psychopath and Mogadissimo felt dark and theatrical, but also sophisticated, drawing from early prog while keeping one foot firmly planted in gloomy metallic territory. Unfortunately, the band collapsed before the album could be released. It finally surfaced decades later, instantly earning cult status. Necromandus never got the credit they deserved, but for anyone exploring the shadowy corners of early metal, this band is essential. Halfway through the 70s list, and it's already getting heavy. From forgotten doom pioneers to European proto-metal, these bands were decades ahead of their time. Which of these have you actually heard before? Any deep cuts from the 70s you'd add to the list? Drop a comment, and let's keep going. Number 16, Pentagram. Long before doom metal had a name, this Washington, D.C. band was already summoning it from the shadows. Pentagram formed in the early 70s and spent years drifting through label rejections, lineup changes, and underground obscurity, all while crafting some of the heaviest riffs ever put to tape. Their early demo tracks like Forever My Queen and Be Forewarned fused Sabbath-level weight with haunting vocals and slow, crushing tempos. Frontman Bobby Liebling brought both menace and vulnerability, making the band's sound feel intimate and unsettling at once.
Lord, I'm gonna never let you go.
Though their classic recordings weren't officially released until decades later, those early sessions became legendary among doom fanatics. Pentagram may have lived in the margins, but their influence stretches across the entire genre. Number 17, Buffalo. Australia's Buffalo weren't just one of the first heavy rock bands from down under. They were among the earliest to embrace the full weight of what metal was becoming. Formed in 1971, their debut, Dead Forever, came out a year later with dark themes, sludgy riffs, and a raw, unfiltered attitude. Songs like Leader and Susie Sunshine mixed bluesy structures with wall-of-sound guitars and howling vocals. As the decade progressed, albums like Volcanic Rock and Only Want You for Your Body got even heavier, pushing into proto-doom territory with unapologetic lyrical grit. Despite opening for Black Sabbath and having the chops, Buffalo remained a cult act, too heavy for radio, too wild for the mainstream. Today, they're recognized as one of the true trailblazers of heavy metal in the Southern Hemisphere. Number 18, Poobah. Formed in Ohio in 1972, Poobah delivered fuzzed-out, high-energy rock that blurred the line between psychedelic excess and early heavy metal grit. Their debut album, Let Me In, was released the same year, an underground explosion of molten riffs, wild solos, and unapologetic volume. Tracks like Mr. Destroyer and the title cut came loaded with distortion, layered feedback, and the kind of proto-metal urgency that feels years ahead of its time. Guitarist and vocalist Jim Gustafson shredded with abandon, anchoring every track with a sound that was loose, loud, and unpredictable. The band never broke through nationally, but their debut has since become a collector's gem. For many, Let Me In is the blueprint for garage-born, acid-fueled metal, raw and reckless in all the right ways. Number 19, Truth and Janey. Out of Iowa in the mid-70s came a band that brought unfiltered heaviness to Middle America. Truth and Janey's underground cult status came mostly from their 1976 album, No Rest for the Wicked, a blistering blend of hard rock power and proto-metal grit that felt far removed from mainstream trends. Songs like The Light and Down the Road featured pounding drums, gnarly distortion, and guitar solos that walked the line between bluesy and unhinged. Their sound wasn't clean or polished, it was urgent, desperate, and totally alive. The band never reached national attention, but their lone studio album has become a staple for collectors and a blueprint for DIY heavy bands that follow. If you're searching for the Midwestern sound of metal before it had a name, start here. Number 20, Icecross. In 1973, from the unlikely cold of Reykjavik, came one of the darkest and most mysterious proto-metal records of the decade. Icecross blended Sabbath-like doom with eerie psychedelia, filtered through isolation and minimal production, resulting in an album that feels both primitive and chillingly ahead of its time. Their self-titled LP included tracks like Jesus Freaks and Wandering Around, filled with haunting organ, dirty fuzz guitar, and vocals that echoed with existential dread. There was no flash, no gloss, just raw, unnerving atmosphere and crushing tone. They vanished after that one record, leaving behind only whispers and reissues. But for underground metal historians, Icecross is a landmark, not just for Iceland, but for how heavy rock could sound when stripped to its bleakest essentials. That's the 70s, 10 more bands that carried metal through its growing pains. Some laid the foundation for doom, others went faster, harder, or weirder than their time allowed. But every one of them pushed the genre forward. Which one would you bring back for a second shot? Drop your favorites in the comments. And now, it's time to enter the underground chaos of the 1980s. Number 21, Lizzy Borden. Formed in Los Angeles in 1983, Lizzy Borden brought theatrical flair to the metal scene, complete with face paint, blood-soaked stage antics, and a sound that packed real bite. They weren't just shock value. This act had the chops to back it up. Albums like Love You to Pieces and Menace to Society delivered a potent blend of glam, speed, and traditional metal. While 1987's Visual Lies produced underground hits like Me Against the World. Their mix of melody and aggression stood out, catchy enough for fans of glam, heavy enough for purists. Despite strong fan support, they were buried under the commercial wave of the era and never reached the heights of their peers. But for those who dig deeper, Lizzy Borden remains one of the 80s most compelling cult acts. Loud, flashy, and criminally underrated. Number 22. Holy Moses. While thrash metal was exploding in the US, Germany had its own storm brewing, and Holy Moses was right at the center. Formed in 1980, the band was fronted by Sabina Klassen, one of the first women in extreme metal, whose snarling vocals helped redefine what a metal frontperson could sound like. Their 1986 debut, Queen of Siam, was raw and aggressive, but it was the follow-up, Finished with the Dogs, that solidified their place in the underground. Tracks like Current of Death and Life's Destroyer were technical, fast, and totally relentless. Holy Moses never cracked the mainstream, but they didn't need to. Their influence stretched deep into Europe's thrash and death scenes, and Sabina's fearless presence broke barriers that still echo through the genre today. Number 23. Grim Reaper. High-pitched wails, screaming guitar solos, and hooks you couldn't forget. Grim Reaper brought pure heavy metal glory to the early 80s. Formed in the UK, they rose from the NWOBHM wave with a sound that was melodic, theatrical, and unapologetically over the top. Their 1983 debut, See You in Hell, became an underground favorite, thanks to the title track's unforgettable chorus and a delightfully lo-fi MTV video. Follow-up albums, Fear No Evil and Rock You to Hell, only sharpened their formula, delivering fist-pumping anthems with a classic metal feel. Vocalist Steve Grimmett's soaring voice became their trademark, but label issues and the changing landscape of late 80s metal held them back. Still, their records remain cult staples, keeping Grim Reaper's name alive in the halls of true metal fandom. Number 24. Anvil. Before thrash took over, Anvil was already pushing metal into faster, louder territory. Formed in Toronto in the late 70s, the band released Metal on Metal in 1982, a blistering album that laid the groundwork for the speed metal movement and influenced giants like Metallica and Slayer. Tracks like Mothra and Jackhammer combined pounding drums, snarling riffs, and a raw energy that felt completely unfiltered. Steve Lips Kudlow's manic guitar work and Rob Reiner's precision drumming were the heart of their sound, heavy, catchy, and built for volume. Despite early praise and undeniable talent, the band was derailed by poor management and bad luck. It wasn't until the 2008 documentary Anvil, the story of Anvil, that they finally got a piece of the recognition they deserved. But true metalheads knew Anvil had been there all along. Number 25, Sortilege. France might not be the first country that comes to mind for heavy metal, but Sortilege changed that in the early 80s. Formed in Paris in 1981, their sharp riffs, soaring vocals, and epic melodies made them one of Europe's best-kept secrets. Their 1984 album Metamorphose showcased powerful tracks like D'ailleurs and Majesté, combining theatrical flair with a classic metal sound that drew comparisons to Dio and Iron Maiden. They even recorded English versions to reach wider audiences, but their magic was most potent in French. Though their time was short-lived, Sortilege left a lasting mark on European metal. Today, their records are revered by collectors and fans who crave a mix of melody and metallic power with a unique cultural twist. Halfway through the 80s list, and the underground keeps roaring. From European powerhouses to US metal warriors, these bands carried the flame in the shadows. Which of these bands have you discovered? Any favorites you think should have been huge? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and get ready because the 80s are far from over. Number 26, Omen. Emerging from Los Angeles in 1983, Omen brought a darker, heavier edge to the US power metal scene. Their debut battle cry was pure steel, packed with pounding riffs, warlike lyrics, and gritty vocals that pushed the boundaries of the genre at the time. Songs like Death Rider and The Axeman delivered relentless energy, while follow-ups such as Warning of Danger built on that momentum with anthems like Ruby Eyes of the Serpent. The band balanced heroic themes with crushing heaviness, making them favorites among underground fans. Although they never broke into the mainstream, Omen's fierce dedication and classic sound earned them a loyal cult following and respect from metalheads who appreciate the genre's raw, unfiltered power. Number 27, Cirith Ungol. Hailing from California, Cirith Ungol stood apart with a sound as dark and mysterious as their sword and sorcery-inspired imagery. Their 1981 debut, Frost and Fire, mixed doom-laden riffs with epic fantasy themes, creating a haunting atmosphere that few bands dared to approach. Songs like Atom Smasher and Master of the Pit showcased gritty guitars, powerful vocals, and an otherworldly vibe that polarized listeners. Some loved the raw intensity, others found it unsettling. Their follow-up, King of the Dead, pushed this darker vision even further. Though never achieving mainstream success, their cult following has only grown over decades. Today, Cirith Ungol is revered as pioneers of epic and doom metal, influencing countless bands in the underground. Number 28, Jag Panzer. Emerging from Colorado in the early 80s, Jag Panzer carved out a place in the power metal scene with their 1984 debut, Ample Destruction. The album combined soaring vocals, intricate guitar work, and a polished but aggressive sound that set them apart from many peers. Frontman Harry Conklin's powerful voice soared over tracks like License to Kill and Warfare, while the band's tight musicianship balanced melody and speed. Their sound was both accessible and intense, earning them respect in underground circles. Despite their talent, label troubles and shifting musical trends kept them from wider success. Still, Jag Panzer remains a favorite among power metal aficionados, often hailed as one of the genre's best-kept secrets. Number 29. Riot. New York's Riot were one of the most underrated heavy metal bands of the 80s. With a career spanning decades, their 80s work, especially albums like Fire Down Under, 1981, and Thundersteel, 1988, showcased their hard-hitting traditional metal and speed metal chops. Songs like Swords and Tequila and Thundersteel combined catchy hooks, razor-sharp riffs, and blazing solos. Their aggressive yet melodic style influenced countless bands in the US and Europe, particularly within the power metal scene. Despite lineup changes and limited label support, Riot's legacy lives on. They never achieved massive fame but earned the respect of metal purists worldwide and left a lasting mark on the genre. Number 30. Candlemass. Formed in Sweden in 1984, Candlemass redefined doom metal with their slow, crushing riffs and operatic vocals. Their 1986 debut, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus, set a new standard, blending crushing heaviness with grand theatrical flair. Tracks like Solitude and Demon's Gate created an atmosphere both bleak and majestic, introducing a dramatic sense of storytelling that separated them from the pack. Their follow-up Nightfall raised the bar even higher, with iconic songs like Bewitched. Though they never reached mainstream commercial success, Candlemass helped shape an entire subgenre. Their early albums remain sacred ground for doom metal fans worldwide.